One story that didn't get the attention it deserved was a destruction of a British ship in the Red Sea by Ansar Allah fighters, also known as Houthis. The oil tanker was reportedly on its way to Greece from Iraq when Houthis targeted the vessel. In the viral video, which unfortunately I can't show you because the moment I show that video, YouTube will take action against me and restrict the reach of this video. So you can go and watch it on Twitter, on Google. They are quite legitimate and verified. They are actually, this has happened and the ship is indeed on fire. So in the viral video, the ship could be seen on fire after being hit by Houthi fighters chanting in Arabic. We don't know if indeed the British shipping company Delta-owned oil tanker was on its way to Greece or there was an Israeli link here. You can never rule out the Israeli link, can you? But this has definitely caused panic and fear in the Western world. And the US State Department has been very, very quick to release a statement urging Houthis to care about the environment, since the spilled oil will be catastrophic for the environment. How cute. The statement reads, "The United States is gravely concerned by the Houthis' attack against the oil tanker MT Delta Sunian. The Houthis' continued attacks threaten to spill 1 million barrels of oil into the Red Sea, an amount 4 times the size of the Exxon Valdez disaster. While the crew has been evacuated, the Houthis appear determined to sink the ship and its cargo into the sea. Through these attacks, the Houthis have made clear they are willing to destroy the fishing industry and regional ecosystems that Yemenis and other communities in the region rely on for their livelihoods, just as they have undermined the delivery of vital humanitarian aid to the region through their reckless attacks. We call on the Houthis to cease these actions immediately and urge other nations to step forward to help avert this environmental disaster." Now contrast this statement and its tone to the bravado shown by Blinken and his British poodle Rishi Sunak in January this year. Blinken was warning Houthis of consequences. Yes, these are the words that he was using during his trip to his favorite country, Israel. Speaking to reporters in Tel Aviv, he was saying that Houthis will face consequences if they don't stop the attacks. He, along with Sunak, appeared more concerned about ensuring the freedom of the sea, freedom of the navigation, than the freedom of thousands of innocent civilians to live with dignity and safety in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. That's the bloody hypocrisy of these clowns.
You're right, a number of actions being taken by the Houthis, by other Iranian proxies in Iraq, in Syria, that threaten stability and threaten the potential for conflict. And we're determined, again, that we not see escalation, that we don't have the conflict spread, and we've made that very clear. But of course, if our personnel, if our forces are threatened or attacked, we'll take appropriate steps. We'll respond. We'll protect them. We've demonstrated that in the recent past, and we will again if we have to. We talked already about the threat that the Houthis are posing. That's a threat not to us, just to us or to Israel. It's a threat to the entire international community because they've been attacking shipping through the Red Sea that's vital to providing, it provides about 15% of global commerce every day. These attacks have had very, very negative effects for countries around the world in terms of forcing ships to route around the Red Sea, take longer routes, more expensive, more time, insurance rates goes up, prices for food, for medicine, for energy, for whatever's being shipped are going up. And more broadly, it's a threat to the principle of freedom of navigation that every country has a stake in. That's why more than 40 countries joined us in condemning the Houthi actions. That's why other countries have joined us in making clear that if this continues, there are going to be consequences. But no one was looking to create a conflict or to escalate a conflict. On the contrary, we're seeking to prevent that from happening. But we also have to uphold basic principles of international law, including freedom of navigation, and we have to make sure that our own personnel, when they're under threat, are being protected.
You said there are going to be consequences. Does that mean there has been a decision by the U.S. or its partners to take action?
Look, I'm not going to speculate on what will happen in the future. We just want to make clear that if these actions by the Houthis continues, there'll be consequences. I'm not going to say anything beyond that.
Sunak was showcasing his so-called bravery after having launched military strikes in an already war-ravaged country of Yemen.
I'd like to update the House on the action that we took on Thursday night against Houthi military targets in Yemen. Since the 19th of November, Iran-backed Houthis have launched over 25 illegal and unacceptable attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. And on the 9th of January, they mounted a direct attack against British and American warships. They fired on our ships and our sailors. It was the biggest attack on the Royal Navy for decades. And so we acted. We did so in self-defense, consistent with the UN Charter, and to uphold freedom of navigation, as Britain has always done. Alongside the United States, with support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, we ordered the RAF to strike 2 Houthi military facilities in Yemen. I want to be clear that these were limited strikes. They were carefully targeted at launch sites for drones and ballistic missiles to degrade the Houthis' capacity to make further attacks on international shipping. I can tell the House today that our initial assessment is that all 13 planned targets were destroyed. At the drone and cruise missile base in Barney, 9 buildings were successfully hit. A further 3 buildings were hit at Abs airfield, along with a cruise missile launcher caught in the open. We have seen no evidence thus far of civilian casualties, which we took great care to avoid. I know the whole House will join me in paying tribute to the incredible bravery and professionalism of all our servicemen and women. The need to maximise the security and effectiveness of the operation meant that it was not possible to bring this matter to the House in advance. But we took care to brief members before the strikes took place, including you, of course, Mr. Speaker, and the Leader of the Opposition.
Guess who was cheering Sunak in his warmongering campaign? The current Prime Minister of UK, Keir Starmer, who was the Leader of Opposition then.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I thank the Prime Minister for the secure briefing last week and for advance copy of his statement. Mr. Speaker, let me reiterate that Labour backs this targeted action to reinforce maritime security in the Red Sea. We strongly condemn the Houthi attacks that are targeting commercial ships of all nationalities, putting civilians and military personnel in serious danger, including British forces. The Houthi attacks are unacceptable, illegal, and, if left unaddressed, could lead to a devastating rise in the cost of essential food in some of the poorest countries. And, Mr. Speaker, the international community clearly stands against the Houthi attacks. Alongside the UK and the US, 4 other countries were involved in non-operational support. Over a dozen nations are part of the Maritime Protection Force in the Red Sea, and many others support the recent UN Security Council resolution, which condemns the Houthi attacks in the strongest possible terms.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I ask the Prime Minister this? In that region, there are 17 million people living in hunger and food shortage. We've had years of bombardment of the people of Yemen by weapons supplied by Britain from Saudi Arabia. And we have this dreadful conflict going on in Gaza where there are 30,000 people dead or missing. Where is the comprehensive plan by the Western nations to try to bring about a comprehensive peace across the whole region rather than pumping more and more weapons and money in to more and more conflicts, which will get worse? Does he have any hope for the future that there will be a lessening of conflict rather than the present very rapid increase in it?
Mr. Speaker, I do have hope. And that's because as we and others take action to degrade and disrupt the capability of those who are malign actors in the region, that will actually give the space for positive voices to build the peace that all of us want to see and to allow everyone to live side by side with dignity and security and opportunity.
The reality is that all these Western nations are nothing but bunch of cowards. They thrive in using the most lethal and sophisticated weapons against unarmed and the most vulnerable in society to murder them mercilessly. However, history suggests that despite their savagery and the so-called military might, these colonizers have had to face humiliation each time in their military expedition. From Somalia to Vietnam, from Iraq to Afghanistan, and now Houthis, these Western powers had to flee fearing brutal reprisals. That's why I say they're cowards. In Iraq, America-led forces had murdered more than 1 million innocent people. You know why? Because we were told that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and he could attack countries like the UK in just 45 minutes. We all know this was a lie. They have always used a lie, a big lie, to justify their genocidal campaign, as they are doing it right now in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. And not to forget the Russia-Ukraine war. And they talk about ecological disaster as a result of Houthis' attack on a British ship. What about the environmental disaster, as a result of those the millions of pounds worth bombing in Gaza? How long would it take to clear those debris? What impact would it have, or it has already had on the environment? They don't want to talk about that because it doesn't suit their agenda. These morons, these clowns, warmongers declared Taliban's terrorists, but had absolutely no problem in holding peace negotiations with them in Qatar. They have designated Hamas terrorists, but have a problem when Hamas don't send their representatives for a cup of tea with them. That's the hypocrisy of Americans and their dodgy West. That's it for me. I am absolutely overwhelmed by your appreciation of my journalism on buymecoffee.com. If you think that this journalism is worth supporting, then you too can consider buying me a coffee. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.